In order. It's 10 after, so we're a little bit late. That's all right.
Yes, we have a posting.
And posting of agenda.
It's been posted.
Okay, any,
One change, which we added was the Caltrans resolution, which I think is C1. And I also, did she leave? I was gonna mention that Anne, out of the room, is here today as an employee. First day as an employee.
yeah,
Who's that?
I think she snuck out.
Our, then at the end of it,
Okay, so C1 is the
she's an employee, she's working on transportation program.
public comments.
Brief one.
Public comment?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to say thank you to Mayor Kirkshank. He withdrew his statement in opposition to our measure, our bond in Redondo Beach. Really appreciate that. Makes it a lot easier on an uphill battle already. And I extended any support I can garner from Redondo Beach for the issues that they've got going on in Rancho Palos Verdes. Thank you. Thank you.
Let me add to that. You all have been great. I've had so many people from different cities reach out to me to offer support. That means a lot to our city, so thank you for that. There might come a time where I do need your support, but just getting the moral support has been very helpful. And of course, the prayers help as well, and so whatever way in which you want to support us, I appreciate that, and our whole community appreciates that.
Absolutely. Okay. And we're happy that happened. Any other public comment? Okay, consent calendar. Motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second, David?
Who made the second? Any opposition? Any abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you. Action items.
Okay, and that included C1.
Yes.
Which was the Caltrans.
Absolutely.
Okay, so. Oh, Wally has a couple of things he wants to talk about.
Yeah, my show needs to come up.
These are your slides, Wally?
Yeah. Well, this is a big moment anyway. We've been talking about this with you for 3 or 4 months, and so tonight it's tonight.
Okay.
I'm a night owl, so I'm getting confused. It's early morning for me. So this is the action item. And just by way of just a quick introduction to all this, this is the federal government has put, since COVID, put a ton of money. I mean, I'm talking about several billions of dollars into something called digital equity. And so we've already benefited from one of these. We got 500,000 to do a network extension plan and a needs assessment and things like that. So part of what's going on with this next tranche of money is that we took what we've learned from the $500,000 from the CPUC that was part of this federal money to come up with what we're applying for in this grant. So next slide. And gosh, that's too far away to see. Oh, I got it over here.
The bear being old.
I need a monitor right here. Yeah, so it's a $1.25 billion and it's a national competition. Yeah, it's called a competitive grant as opposed to a formula grant, which they also have other grants that are going out by formula to the states. And you can read what's talking about here: digital equity, digital inclusion. There's all kind of general sort of round terms, but we're going to be specific in that. Mostly what they want is what they found. What society found out during COVID was that there's a real disadvantage to society when people, through poverty and other reasons, can't get on the internet. And so let's make that happen. So that's sort of what it's about. And the I thought we shouted. Oh, dear. This is a long way down from that. It's the National Telecommunications and Information Administration is the federal agency responsible for this. Okay, next one, David. So what they're interested in are these covered populations, and there's 8 of them. We have only 6 here. We don't really have, we're not dealing with anyway incarcerated individuals or rural. The rest of it, you can see, and generally speaking, it's veterans, people disabled, income disadvantaged, low income folks, language barrier, those kinds of things, ethnic minorities. So that's the so-called covered populations. And everything we do is spending this money has to do with the covered population, including seniors. Okay, next one, Dave. So the components of what they mean by digital equity is you got to be able to get on the internet in a fast, reliable connection to the internet. That's sort of fundamental. And of course, our South Bay Fiber Network is kind of plays a role in all of that because we're serving several of our community-based stations right now with that, as well as all of the cities. The second thing is it's great to have a connection, but then you got to be able to get onto it, and that's what you require: devices, computers, and laptops, and all that kind of stuff. Then you also have to have the skill to do it, and a lot of folks don't even have, because of their disadvantaged history. They don't really have the skills to get an email account and, friend off the various scams that we all get, the Nigerian prince and so forth. Although I am tempted always by the Nigerian prince because it just might be true. You just never know. And then in the end, what they're really interested in, the federal government and the state government is interested in workforce development, workforce preparation. So there's a component of this that is, let's get advanced skills as well. And with artificial intelligence software coming out and telephones and cell phones and new computer software built into the operating systems of the computers, the advanced skills, you gotta be able to use these tools. And in fact, someone at the General Assembly in February, March, April, whatever it was, earlier this year, made that point that AI tools are really, really important for future workforce. Okay, David, next. So because the NTIA doesn't want to deal with a lot of little grants, they came out early and said, we're going to give points if you come in as a collaborative organization of some sort. So that led the County of Los Angeles to step up, and they put together this intergovernmental broadband coordinating committee. And I would say, as a participant in it, it was less than totally satisfying, but nevertheless, it is what it is. So our application will go through the county, and we will be one of at least 47 different entities that are community-based organizations. We have two other cities besides ours, Carson and Inglewood, that put in their own independently, their own application for funding. The cap, according to the NTIA, is they'd like all the applicants to come in under $12 million. Well, we're not, as the county tells me, we're up around 30 million. So that makes this whole enterprise just a touch shaky. And we'll see in the end of the day what really gets funded and how they'll distribute those cuts. I imagine everyone has to get a haircut. So what I'm going to tell you in a minute is what our application stands for now, what it's going to do, may or may not get the amount that we're asking for, because they're 2.5 times over what the NTIA said the cap is. But it's a soft cap. They said you can go higher if you justify it. So we'll see. Probably it's all comes down to politics.
So quick question, 47 entities, is that a combination of cities, nonprofits?
Yes,
All the above?
all of that. And councils of government.
Okay.
I think San Gabriel Valley, Jack, they in as well.
I don't know if they're
I thought they
in.
were. Gateway is not, but we are.
And what do they have to do, like, for example, the nonprofits that support seniors? But
I'll
they
tell
have
you
to
in
do.
just a minute. Brett, that's an excellent
Good
question.
lead.
Go ahead, David. So here's what we're getting funded to do. We're going to get a total of 1.6 million, which is actually not chump change, I don't think. 400,000 of the 4.25 is to hand out, distribute for free, 400 laptops and 400 mobile hotspots. I can explain them if you want. I don't have to go into it, but I can explain the mobile hotspots. Not everyone's familiar with them, but I can explain. So this is kind of out of our wheelhouse. And so we're dealing with Cal State University Dominguez Hills, who has done this sort of laptop giveaway before. So we're going to rely on them to really manage this for us. And there's also a company called Human IT, which is a nonprofit that's going to provide the hardware and the software. And so between Human IT and Dominguez Hills, we will just pass through that amount of money. But our constituents will get over $400,000 with the hardware and software. The big one is we're getting 1.2 million, and there was a controversy over what is a public access center. But anyway, we're getting money to develop public access centers. and also to hire some what's called digital navigators. And because of this funny rules having to do with the NTIA and county, we have to do the hiring of those. We cannot pass the money through to anybody else. We have to actually hire them. But Dominguez Hills, we have a deal already that we know we have to pay them. They're so-called digital navigators. They're on-site people who help folks who don't have skills navigate. Digital navigators. They're going to navigate the internet. And I heard my wife just as I was leaving this morning screaming at a website because it was so poor, the user interface was so poorly designed. So this is a real thing. We could all use, I think, a digital navigator at home.
And I wanted to mention the reason why this is on the agenda. I don't always bring you scopes of work, but this really is a departure for the COG. And I was very unnerved by it because the county somebody's rule is saying that the sub applicant, who's us, has to hire these people. We would never normally hire people that are going to work at Dominguez Hills and do all these other things for us. But they're saying that we have to do all of that. So there's restraints in this grant that sort of leave our normal way we work. And yet it's $1.6 million that we don't want to give up, and possibly a lot of good equipment for our region. But I just wanted you to know this is beyond what we normally do. It's much more operations, much more hands-on and on the street.
So, well, maybe I'll touch on that. What's the period of performance for this? I mean,
Oh, yeah, it's 3 or 4 or 5 years.
okay, the reason I ask is, Jackie, you're talking about hiring people, right? So again, you'd hate to say, okay, hey, you're on board and next week you're not kind of.
Oh, they'd be contract employees. We can't hand Dominguez Hills a check to hire 5 of them to do this at so many dollars an hour for 20 hours a week. We have to actually do the hiring, but they will do the procuring for us. Dominguez Hills has got a lot of experience in this, so they're going to make it as easy as possible. So don't anybody get scared. Jackie, I'm like going nuts.
But what department are you guys using at Castle Dominguez? So they were the one I brought you to, the science and innovation.
No,
So it's not them?
no, it's
Crystal Rawls, who was she does workforce development.
Okay.
But we're happy to work with all of them. I mean,
and one of the things that I'm gonna ask, this is due, this was due Friday, and I told them we wouldn't get it to them Friday because I wanted to get your sign off today that we're gonna participate. There's a letter of commitment and Robbie needs to sign it and all those kinds of things. So we're gonna have to get it to them no later than tomorrow. But assuming once we get this grant, well, before we get this grant, the next step for me is to have Wally make sure to get some commitment from Dominguez that's working. We know what we're doing, what they're doing, some commitment from the county on what they're saying about a public access center. Because my concern is the county has hired this great person who has been running this process. And if she leaves in the next 3 years, this is not very clear what they're funding us for. And I want all of that made very clear in the next couple of weeks so that anybody that leaves for years will know what we're doing here. So that's the next step.
I would also add, we don't want to talk about this now because I think Jackie we want to go through more of this in October in greater detail, what the actual $500,000 was from the PUC and what we did with it and where we're going with it and other things to do with the existing South Bay Fiber Network. But it is really important that this idea, the emphasis of the feds is to pump up people in their home. And our research, I won't go into it right now, but is that, if you have a collective, if you have shared stuff, you're going to be able to do more for those folks and more for society. And that actually leads into the public access centers, lead into the whole idea of neighborhood centers, what we've been working on here for 10 years, which is a commercial redevelopment strategy. It's a transportation strategy, and it's an economic development strategy. So the idea of having a computing center was something we had to hand wrestle with human IT over, and anyway, we won. And so here we are. So, yes, John.
So on the top one where it says giving laptops and hotspots to members of the covered populations, I mean, that's not obviously a lot of computers. Is it something that it could go to like community centers where people could go and use them to have that digital access? Or what did you have in mind?
Well, the feds and they're driven by this thing that people should be able to compute at home and get on the internet at home. So we were assigned this number, 400, and hotspots as well, which is also important.
Four
consideration.
hundred and Inglewood's getting 400.
Yeah, maybe.
What?
Maybe.
What'd you say?
We're applying.
What are applicants
Separate.
for 400?
But don't forget, we're all taking a haircut, so we don't know how that's gonna come down. The NTIA may say, well, wait a minute, you're already talking for the South Bay. What are these two cities doing here? We have no idea. This has been a very interesting
My
process,
question
to
is-
say the least.
Okay.
But to answer your question, John, under the community centers, the 1.2 million covers whatever equipment we put into those centers. And so, for example, Gardena has a park, Raleigh Park, I think. And what I understand from my research, Jake did it, that there's 5 computers there and there's a waiting list and they're kind of old. So what we would do is go and say, can't we replace those with brand new desktops that are equipped with AI stuff and all that? And the same thing with various, boys and girls clubs in Carson and, in other words, the equipment that you're asking about is in the 1.2 million. The giveaways is something that the feds have in mind that would not necessarily do it. And Britt, we're trying to get our senior centers up on the hill. This, and Jake is working on that even as we speak right now.
We actually,
That he is, and you're looking.
because we don't, that's not something we do, but that's something that they want for this grant.
I didn't see it does that, man.
Yeah, well, it's not
Which is
new.
surprising.
They've been doing it for some years. They've been giving away a lot of laptops. Of course, we all know the problem with computers is they're okay for about 3 years and then they're obsolete. So particularly with AI tools coming in. So it's, yeah, but we're gonna have this, with the experiment, John, that I'm trying to do is what happens, it's okay if you give a lot of disadvantaged folks the least, here it is. Or if you privately at home, or if you share the absolute best. And that's what we're trying to see is what happens when you give disadvantaged folks a chance to use the very best stuff. Like when we were down at the Toberman Center, the staff there did not even know you could get a new keyboard, that they're using the little keyboard on a laptop. I have one that's got colors that go through, it's got raised keys, it sort of hums to you and all that's very cool. So what? Okay, but we'll talk later. All right, go on to the next slide. So we have to come up with, we're limited to 162 grand for overhead. And that means Laura and the sort of cutting checks, signing contracts and all that kind of stuff. We're responsible for an in-kind match of the same thing, 10%, 102,000. And so far we've lined up partners to contribute to this. So for example, if I put into Gardena, Raleigh Park, for example, the space that those computers are taking up, that makes up that access center has a monetary value. And so we will claim that as an in-kind match because we're not building a new building. We're not leasing a new building. We're using what's already there. So Boys and Girls Club of Carson, the Raleigh Park and Gardena, whatever, city halls, anything, we have a space issue that we can monetize. And then we're also going to have our partners, and they like, let's just take one of these nonprofits like putting this in. They have to collect a lot of data for us. So we will have an MOU with them. And the data says how many people that are seniors, how many people in the covered population. So they have to keep records of that. Well, that's a labor charge and we can't pay them for that. But that's labor that they will donate. And then also we have resource partners like the Workforce Investment Board has been deeply involved with us in all this digital stuff for 5 years, almost 6 years. So we're assuming that we don't have to, none of the COG staff has to be part of the in-kind, that we'll get it from the other organizations. Jackie, you're nodding.
No, and we would have to hire somebody to do this grant, probably. But
Yeah.
That would come under the 162,000, I think, right?
No, they would come to 1.2 million.
Oh, okay.
We can hire whoever we want in addition to the folks. That's our person. In addition to
Right.
the students that come from doing this.
Right.
All right, any questions?
So
on this?
potentially we would probably have to, we were talking about this program and we would use outside consultants, but for part of the program, we probably would have to hire at least one staff person to support it.
Yeah, in addition to the part-time so-called.
Right.
That's right. But it's a lot of money.
The 1.6, does that also include like fixing the infrastructure within the building for the internet?
Well, that's a good
That's a
question.
good
And
question.
we've asked them, and part of the joy of working with the county, working with NTIA, working with NTIA through the county has been, there's no answers to anything. So that's a good.
So I'm gonna give my example. We got $2 million from the state for Lawrence Firestone for a tech center. The cost estimated for refurbishing and putting the equipment there was about 1.6 million, exactly. To refurbish the whole thing, and 1.2 million for the place that's a newer building, but an older building has 1.6 because they had to just refiber everything.
Well, that's why we're looking for the big bucks next. And that's another set of grants coming. Because we want to get a building and do exactly what you're talking about. And I look at it at $3 to $5 million if we need to do that. This is to take, the actual grant name is multi-center, something like that. See, the county changed it, so that's part of the joy. Is that we're using existing buildings, so we don't have to do much of that. It really should be like Rodney, I bet you Raleigh Park is all done. I mean, it's all we have to do is wheel in new computers. There's no like.
So they have a whole room for that.
Yeah, and there's no capital improvements that we would have to do. So that's what we're looking for, are places that are really ready to go, that we can just put stuff in and put very little. Now, the network costs are covered. So the extension we do with this optic fiber network will in fact be paid for by any of these folks that work connected. So there's that. Any other questions at this point? Almost through. Okay, so I said there's more tranches coming. So the state got by formula $70 million, and they're going to turn out by the end of the year or early next year a notice of funding opportunity and what they call the capacity grants. And in capacity grants, we can give CBOs or cities money to do it. We can't under the competitive grant, we can under what's coming up. And all of the work we've done so far, the $500,000 that went into PUC grant that we're just turning out the town report on now, has supported a needs assessment, and this really plays in a little bit in the competitive grant and a lot in this capacity grant. So we're looking at least another $1 million out of this. So the whole ball of wax is going to come in, we hope, close to 3 million, 3.5 million that we will get for our constituents, basically. And at another time, I can go through why this is really important to cities. And because it sounds like kind of like, a soft, welfare program. It's not, it's really good business, but we won't talk about it today.
And that's due in January.
No, it will be released in January. What they're doing right now is holding so-called listening sessions. That's the new term. They call it a listening session, but really they talk. And we listen. So maybe it's us, but they're promoting it as they're here to listen to what we need. And I'm not sure. But we're doing it, and we'll do it through the fall, and then the NOFA will come out in December or January. The comparative grant, we should see funds no later than spring of 2025. This one the NOFA will come out sometime early 2025. And then following that, well, or actually preceding that, is the so-called CASA fund in California, and services, and we probably would for happening out of that. And that will be due. Don't know much about yet. But we're looking at it. So there's a lot going on in this space, and also with our own dear American Dark Fiber and this ugly fiber network. We'll have something to talk about in October, I think. So Jackie, anything you want to add to this?
No, just that this has been, Wally has gone through consultant hell on this. Because they have changed the grant so many times. And, like the last minute, even last week, we got a new budget sheet that was completely different than any other budget sheet. It's been a nightmare. And we talked about leaving it, just forget it. And yet it's it's turning out it's going to be 1.6 that we're applying for. And so I just wanted to make sure that you realized it wouldn't come until 2025. But that this is something we are applying for at this point, unless you say no. And it does give us a lot of equipment and a way maybe to populate some of the cities.
Yeah. So I think you answered it though, but because Englewood and Carson are individually applying, is that going to hurt them?
Won't hurt us, it might hurt them.
Okay.
But the county is going to be applying with or without us.
Okay.
The county is going to apply for this grant with or without us. Right. So we either can be in it and bring some resources to our cities or not, and they're still gonna be competing with those other cities.
Okay.
I got a quick question. Well, you mentioned a few places where there might be opportunities, right? Like, I think you mentioned Senior Citizen Center up in RPV, we've got Wamita Manor in Wamita, obviously. 80 units and whatnot. So is there an opportunity there to, set up a little tech center for some of these senior citizens?
Yeah.
Well, again, I'm just,
No, but you're just asking.
I'm just asking.
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
Yes, there is.
That'd be
And if you give me a contact person, me or Jake will follow up with them.
Yeah, because again, it's just, part of this goes back to, I use my mother, she's gonna be 89 this month, right? So, she's not exactly tech savvy or computer savvy or anything else, but if you help them get a little more tech savvy and access to computers to help them be a little more tech savvy, I would offer up that's all good, right?
yeah. So we set it up location.
Seniors are a covered group
Yeah,
and we really want to identify them. And the sooner we get that information from you, with or without this grant, we'll try to find ways to serve those people.
Now, don't forget, there is this other next grant, next man up kind of thing. There's another grant coming right on the heels of this. And so let's see what it works out here. The other thing is this is loose right now. I mean, I was killing myself to come up with a deal. I'm used to doing, real proposals that are, how much is it going to cost and what are the supplies and all this kind of stuff. And in the end, this is what Jackie's saying. The thing kept getting less and less specific, less and less specific and less and less. So the budget sheet that came out was a bunch of boxes you checked. It was preposterous.
it was less work for me.
We're all working overtime, gonna come up with how much for supplies, let's see how many staples will we need in this, that kind of thing. That they just throw it out.
And that's why I want to get some binding understanding. This is not simple.
But it's also true to all of you, if you've got, probably not the rich neighborhoods exactly, but seniors are everywhere, so I mean, they're not.
John will tell you, I'll tell you, that there are rich neighborhoods that people moved in the 60s, and they're not rich people.
Right.
And some of them don't have houses anymore.
And they don't have houses anymore, right?
Yeah.
There could be something.
Anyway, excuse me. Anyway, we'll be back in October to talk about more details of the findings.
Time for, Bronson did that wonderful sheet about foreclosures. And I don't know if you remember, but there were foreclosures throughout the entire South Bay. Every single city. So it might be time to look at that again.
I just don't know that the NTA, we'll negotiate. We'll do the best we can.
No, not-
We'll try to spread the money around and just have as much impact as we possibly can. And also I mentioned earlier, the whole idea of doing stuff that's at the higher end is really important because that's where you get people who will not be homeless. You get, that they can once you cut them off from the electronic economy, they're not going to get anywhere because it's all about that now. And building our own digital economy going forward is really important to the wealth of the South Bay.
Thanks, Charlie. We look forward to future reports on that one.
So we need a motion on this.
So I'll make a motion to approve, close the NT, I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
Yeah. Any opposition? Any abstention?
Thank you. Motion?
Well, I can't remember. We have a legislative briefing on October 10th, and I can't remember if we canceled it or we didn't.
I thought
cancel
we canceled it.
it. Did you think we canceled it?
Did we cancel that one? Do you remember? I thought we canceled that one.
Legislative briefing on September 10th or October 10th?
October 10th.
I don't
I'll
recall.
send it back and send it to me.
Do
Well, let's,
you want
And at
to?
this point, it's all a little late, right?
Everybody's so busy.
We've all voted.
I can't remember why, but I thought we canceled that one.
I thought we did too, because the legislators weren't coming.
Talking about the legislative update.
I think we're all fine with canceling it.
It's all canceled, I think, second time.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna cancel this and I'll tell Natalie because.
Yeah.
we took the rest to get started. On the matrix, David. While David's getting ready, I just wanted to say that we have a quarterly meeting or an every other month or something. With the governor's representative. And this time, our meeting was last week. Yeah, and he asked for a list of what we supported and what we opposed. And so we did give him, we went to the matrix, we gave him a list, and he was gonna take it straight to the governor's team. that was deciding on the vetoes and the signatures. So we've done that, and David will probably still write letters, but that was probably a rather direct way of getting our point across. So, David, well,
I
everybody,
don't have a full packet.
okay, so does everybody have the matrix? I mean, I don't know if anybody's got a,
I pulled it up now. So everything is pretty much sitting on the governor's desk that we've been monitoring. One of the bills that did get signed into law was AB 1774, which is about e-bikes. And then a few of the bills that we've been monitoring did not move forward. One particular one that was of local interest was the landslide state of emergency. Looked like that bill died.
Yeah, actually, the governor's office, the Office of Emergency Services asked Senator Allen to pull that bill. And apparently they're gonna come down and have a meeting. The governor's office is supposed to have a meeting with our city staff. No elected officials are allowed to attend that meeting. So I have no idea what all that means. If that's good or bad. I always sense bad. But yeah, that bill was pulled, so landslide is not considered. And that's the reason that we've had trouble talking to FEMA. Because really California is the gatekeeper to everything. Certain FEMA money, it doesn't go straight to our cities. It's got to go through the state, then through the county, then to us. Because the governor pulled that, we're not sure what they're going to do now. And that's why I've always been talking about getting the governor down to walk through the landslide area, because until you've seen that area, you have no idea what's going on. And just so everyone knows, if you haven't been following that, you know, they've been shutting off gas, they've been shutting off power. Today, again, they're shutting off more power, more gas to the Portuguese Bend, more of the beach club area down near the water. So more homes losing, and also this time around cable TV. So that's why I've been saying that this off-grid is where we need to go. Although, you know, I've been becoming more and more familiar. Off-grid is not as simple as it sounds. And it's amazing how much we rely on Edison. And they own all the wires, like they own all the infrastructure. So to go off-grid, you have to not use their lines too, which is impossible almost. So more to come. There's actually, some people might know there's a big conference going on in Anaheim right now called RE Plus, which is Renewable Energy Plus. And I know the COG doesn't necessarily, Kim and I were kind of talking about that's not necessarily something that the COG focuses on as renewable energy, but that's where all the off-grid technology is going to come from.
we do focus on it, we just can't get funding for it. Yeah.
Okay, well,
Love to get funding.
I mean, even though I won't be on this board anymore, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of lessons learned just from us that I think that the COG is going to want to get, because climate change and all these things are not just something that happens in Rancho Palos Verdes. So, you know, and it's going to give people options, like power options and ways to do things without relying on Edison. And that could be pretty important. But yeah, we don't know why they pulled it, but the governor's office, they're going to talk directly to our city staff. I think the meeting's supposed to occur this week. They're flying down to talk to them. I have no idea what it's about.
Is that odd?
So
odd.
I
Anything else?
think we might have been on the board update a couple weeks ago, but one of the bills we were opposing, which would have allowed the density bonus law to override the California Coastal Act. We were opposing that bill. That bill died. And then there was a proposal to exclude new ADUs from property taxation that also died. A couple of bills that we were supporting also died. One that would allow cities to do ordinances to govern automated vehicle service, like automated taxis. That bill died. And then there was one that probably didn't stand much of a chance in today's budget climate, but it was a program that would help provide state funding for local infrastructure projects that died. So I'm assuming by the board meeting, we'll have a full list of things that the governor signed and or vetoed that we've been monitoring. So
David just reminded me of something that I thought was interesting. actually. I have a relative on a water board, and he was saying that there's a lot of ADUs that have been built or with the water connection to the main house. And now that you can actually sell your ADU as a separate parcel, where's the water gonna come from? And nobody's talking about that, including the water boards, who I actually blame for not bringing that up when the legislation was being considered. Thought that was interesting. It's gonna be a new problem that, anyway. Next is the page 55. This is our take on the state propositions. And the first thing I'd like to suggest is, as we look at this, we are recommending only looking at, and you don't have to look at these either, propositions 4, 5, 33, and 36, which means you wouldn't be addressing 2, 3, 6, 32, 34, and 35, because we don't know that they're germane to the Council of Governments and our focus. So I guess maybe we would like to make sure everybody doesn't, nobody wants to add anything else to this discussion.
Anybody?
That leaves us with, if you want today to make a recommendation on these propositions. Oh, we got a
Proposition, it's 36, right now 6?
36. Yeah, it's on the list.
Okay, yeah, my boss is opposing that.
Okay, 36. Well, okay, so my question, we can start with,
Oh, they've been
I
emailed.
don't know if anybody wants to talk about,
You know what that do?
have down here what we were recommending as a staff. But 4 is a bond issue. And these are the League of Cities has taken a position on these, and I've written down where they've taken a position. Cal Cities is supporting 4, 5, and let's see, they're supporting 4, 5. They don't have a position on 33, and 36 they're supporting. So, yes,
How is the state bond paid for?
state bond is,
Just part of the budget,
Yeah.
general budget, not like an
Right.
assessment on property or anything.
no,
like
I think it's just a general bond.
Takes money away from other things.
that. Right.
So I don't know if you want, first of all, we don't have to take a position on anything. I didn't mention proposition measure A at the end, it's the county measure. We don't have to take a position on anything. We can take a position on some.
What's?
I should ask.
Well, your neighbors are.
There's film on the table, so.
I don't know that there's, I mean, I don't know,
In prior years, we've sent like a letter of support,
Right.
opposition
to the,
to the
or opposite,
organizers of
the campaigns.
yeah, and occasionally they'll add us to like a list of supporters or opponents.
And we sent it to the cities too. I think. So, we don't have to take a position, or we can. I don't think the world is waiting for it, if that's what you're asking.
We push it to the board? We push it to the board?
We can push it to the board, but I don't, if you want to give it any direction as we push it to the board. My only really strong, I guess, recommendation would be on measure A. If you're not supported, don't oppose it, just stay neutral.
Which is measure A.
That's the county measure.
Measure H replacement.
Oh,
Yeah.
got it.
And we can discuss that more thoroughly, which we will. We have a speaker at the board meeting on measure A. But I just think that,
That'd have been a different person. Same.
that, I don't know how the board will come out, but I don't think that's one to oppose.
On the note, measure G too.
Measure G, I don't have down here. What is measure G?
You have it here on the.
I do have it down. Oh, yeah, the structure. So measure G.
Is that for the 15 supervisors?
We're nine,
9.
but
Nine.
we're concerned with the elected CEO that's gonna have majority of the power.
Did you want us to, so you'd want the COG to take a.
We can sit.
Under no term limit. Want us to add G?
Yes.
Yeah, please, because
Thanks.
we got an update from Janice and Lindsay this past weekend at the Contract Cities event on A and G. And obviously, we know what's gonna happen, or potentially may happen if A doesn't pass. I've got a lot of concerns with G. just because, okay, all of a sudden, you know, if the board wants something
Go through that.
and they said the executive officer says, well, sorry, you're out of luck. You know, we know, for example, you know, again, we've got sheriffs, right? So they now have 10 academy classes this year, right? So if the board says, hey, I'd like to have 10 academy classes, can that elected executive say, no, sorry, you're out of luck? So again, there's some concerns that I've got
I'll check them out.
that where does that all come into play is, you know,
No checks and balances.
And that wasn't a unanimous vote of the supervisors, it was 7-3, so.
3-2, yeah.
So,
Were Han and was Han in favor of it or against it?
Han's in favor.
Han.
So Herbert, Han and Solis are in favor, then my boss and Barge are against it.
Creates 9 supervisors and 1 elected CEO.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with
9 supervisors are term limited, but I think the CEO is not.
Unlimited.
supervisors all have term limits, but the executive, new elected director is like a lifetime.
There's something about they can't make a term limit.
Yeah, so.
Anyway, okay, so the question is, I can add that to the board discussion, or we can, or you can, I don't know, what do you, how would you like to address this?
I'd make a motion to take a position in favor of Measure A and against Measure G.
What's the motion on the floor?
I would just, okay, we are gonna hear from the gray guy at the board meeting, so. Let's see.
You want to do that one?
Yeah, I mean, we had heard about Measure A from Ronson before about how much money we'd be getting, right?
Absolutely.
We anticipate getting a little more money.
Yeah.
Locally, yeah, so.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll say.
There's a
And that's
second.
measure G, you said?
Against Measure.
A, S, G.
An A.
And these are recommendations.
Recommendations.
This goes to the board.
Yeah, recommendation board.
Yeah, before we call the question,
Yeah, go ahead.
can I ask a quick question? I remember there was concern on our part about Measure A, given that the folks that put it together were really focused on city of LA, as I recall it, in the county. Jackie,
Yes.
was it to you, to some degree? Are we comfortable with Measure A in terms of where the money ultimately will flow?
That's a question to you.
Okay,
And if there's no recommendation, perhaps if you could just,
yeah, okay, my feeling is, and we're still learning more and we'll learn more from the board representative. I was the person that comes to the board meeting. But there are 2 committees that were going to be in charge of spending the Measure A money outside the formula. Correct me if I'm wrong, Council. But the one committee is the one that it's going to spend the local, the prevention and solution funds is the committee that Paige sits on from Redondo Beach representing us.
the ribbon committee or whatever.
Right. The other committee, it's going to get 35% of the money, I think, is the housing trust one. And that's the one John Marish sits on representing us. My personal feeling is that they have spent all of these months not addressing how they would spend that money. So we have no idea how they plan to spend it other than what the ordinance says. But they haven't really spent the time to figure out what they're going to do if the ordinance passes. So we have no signals from them, and that's disturbing to me. So Bronson, do you want to say anything?
No, I think that's right. We don't actually, and Councilmember Obaji, we don't actually know for sure we're gonna get more money. We're gonna obviously lobby for more money, but it's not written into the measure. So there is a question mark there. So that's just something to consider. Another thing to consider is they have 3 more bites at the apple. They have till 2028 to figure out what's gonna happen to Measure H.
Before it sunsets?
Yeah, before it sunsets.
All right, so there's no staff recommendation as of yet on Measure A?
The only recommendation would be to either, well, no, but the recommendation is to not oppose because
I'll withdraw my motion and that, based on that then.
And my concern is, there's no sunset on Measure A, right? So all of a sudden, it's a 0.5% increase in sales tax, right? So
Perpetuity.
end of perpetuity. So, and as I heard from the supervisors, the problem's been a long time in the making. It's gonna take a long time to, address, if you will, but let's say fast forward 20 years, here's this huge pot of money, where does that go? And I don't know what that answer is, but again, it's, again, that would be some of my concerns is without a sunset, you just got, to go.
So the COG could just be neutral on Measure A, not create enemies, but also not advocate for it. Okay,
Other cogs are doing that too.
okay. For what it's worth, I
You want a different motion?
no, I don't. I don't want,
A motion to stay neutral.
sure, I move that we oppose Measure G.
Second,
Measure what?
G.
I'll second that.
He redacted his first motion, so the second motion now is to just oppose G. Okay,
Who was the second on that one?
About you.
all right, any further discussion? David?
Any abstentions on the vote to oppose, recommend opposing Measure G?
I'm staying.
And any opposition to that motion?
What about the state propositions then?
No.
No, what? Proposing.
No, you're opposing, you're right.
Yeah, then. I second the last one, I second the last one.
No.
State propositions.
That's gonna be my first second.
Because usually you can't take an
I
action.
missed my second.
State. There's the bond, the proposition 5 is lowering the threshold on local bond measures. Proposition 4 is the bond measure itself. Proposition 33 allows for cities to do rent control. It doesn't say you have to, but it allows for it.
19th.
And 36,
Our board meeting.
increasing penalties, crime. And we don't have to have any recommendations if you don't want it.
No,
Now let's move it. Nothing at this time.
makes it easier.
So we'll put this on the board agenda. If you it's just- Okay. I'll go on.
Yes.
REAP. The REAP 2.0 is the thing that the governor removed from the budget. There's a lot of lobbying done and it came back in. And now we need a resolution which is attached that is required by SCAG to resume 2.0 funding. I wanted to tell you some of and the resolution needs to be modified that's in your packet. Because our remaining budget, we spent a whole lot of money before this was ever even authorized. We spent it in administration. And so we spent about $15,000 of the money that we had been authorized. So the actual resolution needs to say $570,272.45, which is what's remaining. We still need legal review and filling in the blanks of the MOU, but the resolution refers to an MOU, but we need to pass the resolution. Two things I wanted to let you know about is we've started preparing RFPs so that they can be circulated before the project, before we actually get a notice to proceed. The reason we're doing that is that this used to be a 2-year program. Now it's a 1-year program. And the way SCAG is going, it's going to be a 9-month program by the time we get all of the approvals done. So we want to circulate, and SCAG is lobbying for an extension to 2 years, but probably they won't get it in time for all the contracts and we'll have to amend our contracts. And I mean, it's going to be a mess. So we have to assume it's a 1-year program. So something like the Housing Trust, we have already written the RFP. And over the weekend, I sent the RFP that we've already written to SCAG for their approval. If they approve it, it would be our intention to circulate the RFP, to explain on the RFP that we cannot let this contract until we get all the approvals from SCAG, but at least we could go through and have the consultant ready. And I'd like to do that. That RFP was already ready. I'd like to do that on the other projects as well. And so we could actually hit the ground running. It means that we're going to have to pay for the selection process ourselves, but I think we've already used that money up anyway. So I don't think we have to worry about that. So I hope I didn't confuse you all, but the action we're asking you for actually is only to pass the MOU, the resolution for an MOU, which we actually don't have finalized yet, but they need the resolution to get started. So are there any questions? These are 3 projects. One is the housing trust to look at the viability of a housing trust fund. Second is commercial redevelopment and what you can do with unperforming commercial land. And the third is neighborhood mobility hubs. That would be a metro coming through Metro. We work with them on that one.
That'll be up to the board.
Huh?
Approval. That'll go to the board for.
The resolution? Yeah, the resolution will have to go, it'll be on the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion.
A motion on the floor, second?
Second,
And a second?
just quick clarifying question. So
Yes, go ahead.
the steering committee doesn't have the actual language of the resolution, but the board will.
So isn't the language here, the language is
Yeah, I see it, page 57.
page 57, yeah, and the problem, the one thing about this is, if you look at the top, the amount of money is wrong.
Yeah.
And so we'll fix that for the board.
So just a clerical error.
Yeah, that's the only thing. What happened was SCAG didn't ever give us a resolution. This was the one that Ventura County used. And over the weekend, I got something from SCAG that said, well, if you want to use Ventura County is okay. And I had already used it because I wasn't going to wait for them. So this should be fine.
And it's to deal with the housing trust. What are the 3 areas again? You said housing trust?
3 projects we have that have been approved, and we're actually asking for a possible 4th, which we haven't heard back on. But if you remember, we had a proposal to do a housing trust study to talk about what the governance structure would look like, what the opportunities would look like, to talk to developers, to do a whole sort of analysis of what a housing trust would mean in the South Bay. And that's how Gateway started theirs, and we sort of did the cart before the horse. So that would be this study, to get a consultant to come in and start working with your planning directors in your cities on what the opportunities for a housing trust would be in the South Bay, as well as coming up with a governance structure. City managers have already written a draft JPA for the housing trust, should there be one created. So we have some of that, we're sort of here and there with the housing trust, and this would sort of bring us to a place where councils can vote. You haven't had enough information to vote on whether you want to join a housing trust. So that would do that. The second one is we had done a study already on commercial redevelopment in underperforming properties in certain areas. We want to carry that on to more areas, possibly look at malls, see what's done with unused mall space that isn't already being done. And the third is this project with Metro, which would look at neighborhood hubs, mobility hubs. So we try to align that with our digital centers and create opportunities to put the local travel network in a place where you could ride there and then take regional transit. And our 4th, which did not get funded, but we actually have some leftover money, would be to look at parking. It's parking.
Residential parking
Residential for EVs,
for micro EVs.
micromobility, right? Residential parking for micromobility.
Just for clarity, the 500 whatever thousand,
70.
that is for the trust fund and the.
Oh, right.
redevelopment.
Not for Metro.
The Metro one is a separate competitive grant that we applied. for.
Right, and what we've done with Metro is they said that they would let us get started if we had a letter of no prejudice. So we've submitted a request to Metro for a letter of no prejudice, so we can get started on that one. Because everybody's concerned about the timeline. Of course, nobody's getting back to us, so we'll see.
So then this motion is a sweeping over everything you just said.
No, it's only for the 2, you're right, absolutely right. David's right. It's only for the 2 projects.
The SCAG,
The
SCAG project.
specific housing related.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's right, okay.
That's the Metro.
the direct
Okay.
contracts with SCAG.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Any opposition? Any abstention?
Okay. Okay. Okay, board development. In September, we have, and I guess we'll need to confirm with the incoming president of the league, Michael Cow, is his name, from Arcadia, and he's gonna come and tell you all how excited he is to be the incoming president. And then we have Miguel Santana who's coming, and he's gonna talk about Measure A. It's on a leadership table or new leadership something
Yeah, the leadership table for the
Yeah,
executive committee.
for the county. And then we also have considering the ballot propositions. In October, we are meeting at Cal State Dominguez Hills, so don't forget that. We're getting you free parking. But the reason we're meeting there is that at 3 o'clock, they're gonna have an economic forecast conference. And so you're invited to come to the economic forecast conference, stay for the cocktail party. Natalie is working with them on dinner. I don't know if you're gonna need dinner because they're having some cocktail party or something.
Who's thought of that?
And
He did.
oh,
I'm just saying, that was slick.
well, I'm.
Cause every time you get upset that we,
Right, yeah,
every,
time, and they won't change their date. And each time I write them and say, no, I'm not gonna publicize this for you. And
that was you did that?
anyway, so I just, you can't beat them, you gotta give in. So, okay, gotta go to that meeting.
Party. To the concert party.
At that meeting, Wally is gonna talk more about grant, the whole digital equity plan, because we'll be done with our CPUC study. November 21st, which is the third Thursday, we are traditionally, for those of you that remember our traditions, we're gonna have our volunteer recognition. We're still talking about how to do that, whether to have just the top ones come to the board meeting or whether to have dinner first, like we used to have with the volunteers, whatever, but we'll have something. The Vincent Thomas Bridge, we moved to November. We want to talk about what's going on with the Vincent.
November now? I thought it was gonna be October.
Yeah, I did too, but I thought it was, well, right now I've got it in November. It's November, October, whatever. And then I put down election follow-up, which would be like Bronson talking about what happened with Measure A, that kind of stuff, what it means. Today we've got all these other speakers, which I haven't invited any of them. And for special meetings, today at the Transportation Committee meeting, it came out that the Aviation Centuries, well, it's not aviation, it's the aviation something, AMC, I don't know what AMC stands for.
Automated people.
Oh, automated people.
Airport
Airport
Metro Connector.
Airport Metro Connector, you kept saying AMC, I didn't know. Airport Metro Connector, LAX Metro
Peter,
Connector
yeah.
Station. It's not open yet. It's gonna be open the beginning of November, but we could get a tour of it, which I thought would be really nice to go and see. This is supposed to be a huge facility. So we're gonna be arranging with the Metro guy to maybe in October to have a tour of the station before it opens up. And then Rodney,
Are the metros actually connecting to it
yeah,
already?
We should start at the Redondo station.
yeah, we should actually start.
No, that way we could figure out how it all works.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, it's November 1st is when he said. And
So it's good.
They're hoping.
you wanted to ask me?
So, I was asking Jack, I didn't see it on the, agenda today, but, I asked her what happened to the talking session, that we were gonna have on, Metro's request for $1 gazillion.
Inglewood's
Or
request.
Inglewood's request. So I don't know if the group wants to continue with that.
Well, I didn't, okay, since we met last,
Yes.
board meeting, we have, I was able to talk, we had a meeting with Inglewood Consultants. And they are planning to come back. They're doing their final number crunching. And so they have a sample motion and they have a term sheet and everything that they're putting together. They don't have any numbers yet, but when I asked, is it gonna, give me a ballpark, is it coming back lower, higher, or medium? And I got absolute silence. And then they said, it's gonna come back higher. The number they're gonna request is gonna come back higher. Then but I said.
The money that they're requesting from us is not back higher.
Come back higher. Based on the bids, because what they're doing now is they got one bid and they're negotiating that bid. So then they said they had a motion, but they had given it to Metro, but they never gave it to us. So I said, I don't care if the numbers are in the motion, I want to see the motion. So I got the motion over the weekend and I just, they're going to want to talk to you about all of this themselves. And they're still asking for a workshop maybe. But I guess I want to ask you sort of what you want to do, because what's happening is, if you remember where we left at the soap opera last, our attorney said that we cannot give them a binding commitment. You can vote anything you want, but it isn't necessarily binding, right? So they came back with the new motion, which is not finalized yet, as I said, but what it says is that they're going to ask Metro to do a motion this is how I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, accelerate the opportunity for us to ask for money to be going from highway to transit. Right now in the law, we can only, we can't do that until we get closer, like 2026, because we can't change the money until 2027 officially. So this would be, they can't change that ordinance, but they can change the process. They're gonna ask Metro, I think, to change the process where we might be able to do that ask earlier. But then with this motion, depending on what Metro does, they're asking us to commit all that money. So I wrote back over the weekend and I said, I don't see how this is any different than last time because you're asking us to do something with 2027 money. I sent that to our attorney, who also wrote me back and said, you're right. I don't see how this is different than last time either. So the quandary I have is how do we need a workshop on something that our attorneys, so what they're, so I left out one more thing. So we got something back today because I said, I don't see how this is any different. And they said pretty much, this is from the consultant, so I don't know if it's, you know,
Inglewood's consultant.
Inglewood's consultant. I don't know if this is the way they meant it, but I think it's the way, David, you were copied too. The way I'm reading what she said was just do this and we'll see what the FTA does with it.
But I think what they're trying to do is that we couple our non-binding item plus Metro's item, that those two actions together will be satisfactory to the FTA.
But that, what that means though, is that we would have to set aside the money, right? I mean, we can't just do this and then hope that the money is there.
How
The problem is, how do we
My
commit
cons-
money to?
my concern
Yeah,
is
we don't
that
have-
Metro will get the ball rolling.
Right,
And then we'll say. Otherwise, they're gonna continue forward with the transfer.
right.
So what happened in a theoretical, when the board changes their mind maybe in a year and say we don't want to do it anymore, what then happens?
Yeah, so here we are, and that's all I know. And the question is, do we need a workshop? Do you want to have a vote? I mean, how do you want to handle this? Do we want them to come and make a presentation again? And maybe I could invite the attorney, but that's costing us money unless I bill Inglewood for all of this. I mean, you know what? I'm sort of at a quandary. I don't really know what to do.
Ask you a question. How much of this is predicated on getting the federal funds? Right? Because, you know, we've heard from Maxine that she's not in favor of this anymore. She's, you know, essentially saying, hey, I'm going to try and pull the money, right? And I guess with that being said, and again, I understand that a lot of this is predicated on getting the federal funding. So do we even, you know, take a position or have a big discussion pending federal funding resolution? I'm just asking the question.
You're kind of in a catch-22 kind of thing, because they need our money to get a full funding grant agreement, FTA. And I would say that our board should not support anything if there's not 100% federal funding, because
Well,
they'll end up coming back for another 200 million or whatever Maxine Waters has been trying to cut.
well, and Butts said that he was getting it back from her or something in the Senate, that
Well, that the Senate added it back into the funding.
but we haven't gotten verification of that.
And reconciliation hasn't happened, so
Yeah,
there's no confirmation that 200 million that the House cut is officially back in and signed into a funding bill.
I think we're a little bit of cart before the horse.
So I'm gonna tell you right now, as your board chair, I'm not in favor of this. It's just, to me, it's crazy. I mean, and Butts is saying, well, don't worry, we'll pay it back.
Show me the money, lady.
What was it, 2056? 2056, I go, we're not even gonna be here in 2056.
The intention isn't to pay the extra ask back,
No.
it's to pay back the backstop, if they should use the backstop.
Yeah,
which is
yeah, so-
the reserve fund. So the extra money that you guys would be programming towards them is not necessarily coming back in any time frame, unless you're only specifically talking about the extra contingency fund that we would be giving.
We have to look at everybody in this. You can't just look at one city and say, we're gonna give you all of our money, because there's projects that we, as other cities, may need.
or regional 405 improvements, other large
And
projects.
don't we have like a freeway thing that we're doing?
Yeah, a couple.
Well, to that point, what's troubling in part is Metro in proposing to accelerate the distribution of 5 years worth of funds all at once.
No, they don't
Serving-
need the money. They're not changing cash flow. They're saying they don't need our money till 2027.
Right, but I thought what our attorney had said was, we get a certain allocation every year and we can't commit on a forward basis. And what Metro is proposing as a workaround is, though, we're just going to accelerate the disbursement of those funds.
Yes.
Yeah, they're gonna talk, yeah, it's not the disbursement, it's actually the designation.
Does-
Right now, they're highway.
Now, there's two things. One is right now it's highway money, so we can't even spend it on transit. That's what the decennial transfer is to do, is to move it from highway to transit. The other part that is more complicated is we don't have $300 million or whatever the current ask is
Right.
available in 2027 or 8 to give them anyway. So we would have to accelerate future Measure M money at a cost. to
Exactly.
Get the schedule that.
And so
needs.
it seems deeply troubling to me that Metro, in making this proposal to accelerate that, is serving the city of Inglewood rather than all of the South Bay cities.
Well,
Because why would we want all of that money all at once when we don't know what our needs are yet? We don't know what projects we have to fund are yet. It only makes sense as a prerequisite to funding the Inglewood Transit Connector.
this is what happened last time, is that the Inglewood went off and negotiated with Metro and then came to us and said, this is the deal. What they said to me when I asked for the motion was, they're still working this out with Metro. So Metro hasn't agreed to this. I assume they're going to, but, and so, I mean, so we can't, I mean, I assume that they're planning that this idea is they're gonna plan to have that notion, but I don't know that Metro's agreed. And I think the thing that makes me even more angry is I thought we were gonna do this with 3 parties. You know, when Metro got the motion, why didn't we get the motion? It's like, what's going on here? If we're a significant player, why aren't we getting, why are we getting told at the end what the deal is? But that's the way it is.
Well, so for what it's worth, to answer your question, this seems like a consequential ask. And it's probably worth spending some time giving it 360 to it and taking a look at it. I don't know if it is a study session with the Transportation Committee or the Steering Committee or a special meeting of the board, whatever the case may be, but it certainly seems consequential enough, both in terms of its monetary value and the precedent it sets and everything else, to dive deep, or at least give the directors a chance to dive deep if they want to.
Well, that's what September 19th is about, but at the board meeting, nobody wanted to do it, it seemed like.
At the board meeting, it was brought up and it was pretty much,
Crickets.
everybody looked down at the floor. It was like nobody really wanted to pursue it.
I was here and I remember that, but I didn't remember that. I actually thought today's Transportation Committee meeting was gonna be where we were gonna talk about it, because the mayor is obviously inviting a bunch of people to the city of Inglewood.
Yeah, but we didn't have that on the agenda because we didn't have any information till Friday.
Right, so we don't even have a proposal from them,
Well, we have the wording, we don't have the dollar.
right? But given how this thing has been amorphous over time, whether that's actually gonna be what they come forward with, I mean,
Well, the bottom line is that we could actually, as a steering committee, propose to the board that we don't want to get involved.
Well, I think you were spot on, Rodney. If this were to come to the Lomita City Council and it's, hey, we are committing COG money for an Inglewood project that would predominantly benefit businesses and or Inglewood at the expense of Lomita, I'm pretty sure I know what the outcome would be.
Absolutely. And I even said, well, what about the other cog? What about the West Side cog?
I'm just gonna throw into, I mentioned this at the Transportation Committee. I was just in Vegas. I got a chance to look at the below ground tunnels that the boring company's developing. I mean, for a 1.6 mile system for $1 billion, it's nowhere near that cost what they're doing in Vegas right now with a boring company. Honestly,
$1 million.
it's $2 billion now. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at outdated stuff. I mean, that's outrageous. They need to find a better solution. And there are better solutions. I bet when did they start this project?
Oh, this is
Probably planning it decades ago.
The ITC?
No, it's
Actually, no, it's.
especially new
In the last, I'd say 6 years.
or 5, yeah.
Okay, but even in the last 4 or 3 years, a boring company and there's new technologies that are being developed. That's honestly a better way to move more people for a lot cheaper.
Just for contextual numbers again. Early at the Transportation Committee, Mayor Bud said that there's $3 billion available over the next 30 years or something like that. He's not wrong, but just so you guys know, so far in Measure M, we've programmed 318 million just for street and local projects kind of stuff. And so 3 billion, when you look into the future, sounds like a lot of money, but there's clearly a lot of need elsewhere also. And so you can't think of it as 3 billion that is just sitting there doing nothing. There is potential need for it that we haven't really dove into yet to see, is there even capacity to give to the ITC? So.
Well, Mr. Chair, let me just play devil's advocate for a moment, because I think the argument is going to be what they've developed in Inglewood is such a magnet for traffic that it benefits the region to make sure that people can move to and fro and get in and out effectively, et cetera, et cetera.
You heard.
And that, you know, this is just a drop in the bucket compared to the money that it's going to bring in terms of public funding. So with that, I mean, I would invite any member of this committee who is favorable to what we know about Inglewood's proposal to explain if we're missing anything about
It's not,
what the benefit.
Metro has said they're not gonna operate it. It's not gonna be public money. It's gonna be it's gonna be Inglewood money.
So there's a $33 million annual operation and maintenance cost that is uncovered as well.
Yeah, the Inglewood has voted to put 9 million into it. And then the counties, yeah.
I was about to mention
Yeah,
that.
the county is,
Working with the county on that, and that's gonna fund the usage of it.
but it has no
Operation.
it's informed yet, so we don't even know what the revenue is.
Right, but that, I mean, that's, I mean, conceptual at this stage. Just,
They'll have it formed in the next 6 months, I think. But it takes tax increment. It's got a 20% has to go to affordable housing and 80% goes to the operations. But some of our money would supposedly, that loan would get paid for by this climate resilience district. Which, I mean, it isn't formed yet.
Jackie, you made I guess, an ask at the next meeting to either have the attorney or someone to come and present to the entire board. I think that should be the process of having the attorney explain what it will be based upon the board's perspective and based upon legal issues. So it's not coming from you or the chair, it's coming legally, and let us make our own decisions based upon the legal interpretation.
Should we also have, out of fairness, Inglewood, somebody from Inglewood to?
Well, Inglewood will be here and they're refuted, but we need to have that legal shield to let us know this is what it is, and that person, and I know you said the cost, but that's a cost that we don't end up taking what we collectively as cities have and giving to one city, and we have nothing for the remainder.
And I'm not trying to keep Inglewood out of this conversation, but I just wanted to give you a status of where we were. The board has to make the final decision.
And I'd asked Jackie, how come we're not talking about this talking session?
If Inglewood is here, we could ask them, why aren't they doing a cheaper project like using the boring company or what have you? Why is this, the $2 billion is the cost that it would take to run the sea line down Hawthorne Boulevard. I mean, not to bring up an old story, but like, that's the kind of money we're talking about. So this is a little much, so.
Well, do you want me to, I mean, it's something we could have the attorney come to the board meeting. Although you want I guess at the next board, if we have their proposal, I don't know if we should have the attorney before we have their proposal.
Well, wait till you get the proposal.
when's our next meeting? Because Mayor Butt said when he left, they're coming on the 24th.
26, our next.
He said that they're coming.
Yeah, that's what, as he walked out the door.
I think you had stepped out, but he said something, I
Oh,
think he said that he was planning on bringing it to the board meeting. He said
well, see,
that.
that's the thing. We don't, I don't know. I mean, if we don't get it from,
Not on the agenda.
yeah, well, it's not on the agenda yet.
It's gotta come to this committee first, right? Or it
It
gets-
doesn't have to come to this committee, but we would have liked to, for it to have come to this committee. And what I've said to them before is if it comes too late, we're not gonna, I'm not gonna go crazy to figure this out.
Yeah, and given the price tag and issues with this is the last type of thing that we want to be jamming through. I mean, this is the type of thing you want to slow down and take a long look at rather than, you know,
It's complicated.
I'm not gonna do it. I'm up for reelection.
That's the bunch of the work.
I'm not giving away nothing.
Okay,
so, I mean. I'm not favorable towards the application based on everything I've heard, but there is no application.
Right. Wally, do you have something to say?
Yeah, this is not new information, but there are, I took a little look at this. There are 6 or 8 or 9 private shuttle services already today operating to take people from wherever they're coming from, not just from the rail line, but from north, south. Obviously not too much from the west, but the SoFi is served right now by a set of
Yeah. But
entrepreneurs.
it doesn't work on surface streets. So anyone that's gone to any games there knows that those streets are just jammed to the hilt. Like you have to walk to get an Uber, you got to walk like a mile just to
Drop you off
get
way
there.
here and
It's
just walk there.
ridiculous.
Not an Uber, I'm talking about shuttles that go.
The shuttles can't
They
get.
can't get in either. Nobody can get in.
No, it's just packed. It's ridiculous.
Right, and to that point, John, I'm
Can't even
thinking
get
if you had like metro shuttles for game day from the local metro connector,
But then they have.
you would have to, for events, cut cars off the lane. You have to make,
so guys,
exclude cars from the streets and just have it shuttle going on.
Okay.
To make a-
let me ask you a question. Our agenda for everybody else, our deadline is gonna be the 18th, September 18th. If I do not get, because he can walk this in, if I do not get it by September 18th, do you want me to say that you missed our agenda? We'll tell them the agenda deadline's to September 18th. If we don't get the final motion by then it goes to October?
Let me ask you, a protocol perspective, should it go to the transportation committee, then the steering committee, and then the board?
Well, usually we can, well, sometimes we take things from, well, usually you take them from the transportation committee straight to the board.
Should.
It doesn't have.
Well, again, I'm just suggesting a body prior to it just coming to the board.
I agree with that,
So that would be October.
right?
That'll be October.
Okay, so I'm gonna say, David's gonna contact them and say September 18th is the agenda deadline. If they're coming, we're gonna have the attorney, and we need the motion needed by then. If they're coming, we'll have our attorney there. Second of all, do you want me to contact, I don't know, Maxine Waters or somebody to find out what the status is of the federal funds?
No, I think my motion was, if you will, or suggestion was have them come to the transportation committee before they go to the board
In October.
in October.
Oh, just in October?
Yeah.
Not even come, oh. Right.
So
Oh,
you can flush everything out.
okay.
Maxine Waters need to be, everybody should be at that meeting.
So no September. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Will be.
Do our bylaws or whatever government documents there are, allow somebody to submit something for the board agenda, as long as they do it 6 days in advance of the meeting. And if so, then what would be the exception we would be carving out for this because of the magnitude of it and the complexity of it, that like, this can't just have a 6-day window between submittal to the COG
Right,
and hearing before the board.
right.
I don't think so.
We don't have any restrictions in our bylaws, but we only take things that are pretty simple. If they come in late, usually we take things that would have normally been on like a consent calendar or something. A contract that says, I have to have it by, I can start the next month. And we'll explain it, but we try not to do that.
So could this committee right now entertain a motion to? We don't even know, we don't even have the application, so how, I don't even know. how we-
That's what Bill's trying to make the motion that we wait till October. So hopefully by October, the things that we're looking to have will be done. Instead of just saying, well, you have until September 18th to,
Right.
Yeah, hopefully, hopefully they'll have we'll have the motion, we'll have more fidelity on what would be brought to the transportation committee in advance of a board discussion.
And it has to come to the transportation committee a week early too, because what happens is they walk in the things to the transportation committee. So we have to give them the board deadline the deadline for the agenda.
I just want to make sure any motion that's being made right now that is a binding motion because it's not really an agendized.
Oh, I
item on
have to,
today's.
yes, we should add it to the agenda.
Because the item is not
On the-
on
so-
the committee agenda, so I want to make sure that this.
So, okay, so
You guys are reading
I can pull the motion,
Right.
but then I think the general
Consensus.
consensus is have them, as we've done in the past, have them bring whatever they got whenever they're ready to the transportation committee.
Yeah, or the appropriate committee, whether it's the steering committee or the transportation committee, or God knows if we have any other committees, but. that would certainly-
Transportation.
Those
Okay.
meetings.
Cause,
It would be better for me if you added it to the agenda because
You could add an urgency item
yeah,
to today's meeting agenda based on what was discussed at the transportation committee earlier today, and then make a motion.
Yeah, that
to
Mr.
direct
Butts said
Jackie
yeah.
Okay.
accordingly.
That would help me because otherwise, I don't really, a consensus is not really,
I'll make that motion.
So we're adding an urgency item.
okay,
So
so
the agenda, right?
yeah.
To today, so we could. move
And
forward.
Obaji, okay. Okay, so,
Okay, so a motion and a.
Second by Director Obaji.
Second.
Obaji, right,
Any opposition to adding this to the agenda today? Any abstention? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so
so then the motion is that it will come to the October board meeting by going first through the October Transportation Committee
that's my motion.
and meeting the agenda deadlines. Is that part of your motion?
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously the steering committee agenda deadline and or the board meeting agenda deadline.
transportation committee.
Transportation committee, yeah.
For the same.
We have a motion by Uphoff.
Any second? But
Any opposition? Any abstentions?
Thank you.
Okay,
I'm saying,
Who's abstaining?
ST two.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
does
you.
that work?
Yeah.
something not on the agenda.
Sorry, I asked.
It's your fault.
Yeah, I know.
Well, this is helpful because otherwise we're gonna be crammed with last minute.
Okay.
Okay, General Assembly, you have on page 63. Memo on the General Assembly and, we didn't include the chart, did we, David?
It was sent out.
Oh, I don't know if you can read it even. We went through, you asked, Carson expenses are increasing, but overall, they're probably still cheaper than a hotel. So, we do have that on page 64. You can read it. It's very, very
This
small.
is pretty much of a.
I know. Can you put it up?
Yeah, this is.
Okay, while he's doing that, David asked ChatGPT for the names of the General Assembly, and they came back with 13 variations. So anyway, so we had the staff vote, and they voted on SBCCOG at 30, a legacy of success, a vision for. The problem is that Colleen mentioned that not everybody knows what SBCCOG is, so we probably need to spell it out. Basically,
That's fine.
well, government said 30, legacy of success, a vision for tomorrow. Is that, guys like?
We can have it in the logo.
We do.
The name is in the logo too.
Logo?
So we can figure that out.
Okay, doesn't,
I feel like our.
That was- that's what the-
our whole
the term
name
sheet
is
will be
on
about? Just
everything.
Everything that
Yeah,
goes out
okay.
with the title on it.
Okay, so we would leave it the way it is. And then we're planning for 450 attendees and so the recommendation is to approve the title, decide on a location, and then charging for lunch. Whether to charge for lunch. Every year, we make a huge guess on the food, but we've never wanted to charge because we have the sponsors and we figured you're going to charge your cities and the cities are already members and why should we do that? But actually, if you look at the city population, when we look at our attendees, it's not very many people from the cities. It's a lot of other community groups and others. Anyway, the question was, would a nominal charge make any sense? We could charge for the meeting because of the Brown Act. We would have to only be able to charge for the lunch, which is what people have heard, the state of the cities, I guess, are having the same issue. So I don't know if you want to consider a nominal cost for lunch.
What are we thinking?
What were you thinking, Kim? You were thinking like, what was that? $15, $20?
Yeah, I was,
It's pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
we're
I'd say
like,
yes.
we're like closer to
So
probably.
$15 a month?
what's really difficult is that people RSVP and they don't show up. We do have walk-ins. But the count has to be, because now the way businesses are doing it, the count has to be in sooner too. We get a lot of just like last minute, we're always trying to estimate, so it's, I mean,
15
David,
and
you're
then
looking at
show.
me, but David is the one that has to have this.
Not
headache.
missing somebody in their place.
But the lunch itself is like, what is it, 20, what is it?
Yeah,
The lunch is now costing us $40 practically.
yes,
Yeah. So it's,
Yeah.
$20.
Yeah, I mean,
but this would help secure, secure better, idea for food, where you won't have waste or anything like that. I mean, we package it up, but still, as well as, I think you have more people like show up if they have something.
yeah, my take on that is if somebody's gonna spend the $20 and whatever that nominal fee is, at least you're gonna get a more reasonable count than you would have just, hey, sign up and there's no
Yeah.
skin in the game, if you will, if you don't show.
$20 seems good. Like, you don't have to have a lot of change. Like,
Right.
everyone has if anything, everyone has 20.
Go to the ATM and pull it out.
We used to be able to fudge it because we used to have a cake, like a buffet.
Yeah, but we don't have.
And that used to cost us less, and I could like, before Dave was doing it with the buffet, I could budget a lot more. Buffet costs us more now. So they won't let us budget like we were. They got onto us.
Need people to prepay for it, or can they pay on the spot?
We would, I think prepay, we can take like credit cards now, so I think on our registration form, we would be able to work it into
I think
that.
I think it'd be money, really good if, because some people might not prepay for it, might not realize if you could take Zelle and Venmo, and that's like.
At the event,
Yeah, at the event.
Okay.
And cash.
we could look into it. I think that gets us back to the problem.
No
of
one likes
food count.
cash anymore.
I carry it.
And no one has.
Yeah.
One likes cash.
Food count
Yeah,
becomes.
nobody has cash on it, or.
I do.
I think.
I don't like it.
Cash.
Gift cash?
Okay, we
Yeah.
can
People like
take it
me
as
do.
it-
Yeah.
But
Right.
obviously, we'll take some of it.
Yeah. If you show up and you want to get in, you forgot, well, let elected officials.
I would say, for what it's worth, I have no objection to a nominal fee for lunch or appropriate fee for lunch, but I would say we might also consider discounting the amount of food we buy, pulling it back and just saying, first come, first serve, whatever language we use, that you're not guaranteed lunch, right? And
Right.
we have enough data at this point. I think anybody who's dealt with RSVPs to an event like this, that not 100% of the people who RSVP actually attend. So maybe we buy lunch for 75% of the people who have RSVP'd or whatever, and then just make it clear that like lunch isn't guaranteed.
You don't have it,
I
you
know.
don't get it, maybe.
We do that. I mean, that is what we do. But still, when you've got, like 100 to 200 more people that are RSVPing to food you have, it's like, and to manage like who gets food and who doesn't, we have to get out little tickets at the door. It becomes like this whole, did I get my ticket? Yeah, it's like,
Okay, so a nominal, yes, a nominal fee, no, somebody want to make a motion on 20?
I make a motion, we charge $20.
Second.
Who's the second?
I did.
Now, is this the kind of thing, see, I don't even know, that I should take to the board? Is this a recommendation to the board?
I don't even know if it would, is it material enough that it should, right? I don't know that it is.
So it is a change over from the last 25 years, but it's up to you.
it does affect your sponsorship a little bit too, because one of the sponsorship categories is a table. And so does that mean then that they don't have to pay for their table? Feels like,
To pay for their table.
yeah, so that's what, so then, just so you can, I mean,
But wouldn't,
it doesn't hurt us at all, but
wouldn't the
just
table
something
include
to-
lunch for 10 people?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, if you,
Yeah.
whatever
You
that
get come
amount,
with the ticket, the lunch.
the donation come with a table.
Right, exactly.
That's right.
It'll really come with a table now, not just a sign on the table.
Yeah, we
Yeah, it comes with a table.
The Crookshank, is there, you want to make a?
Any other discussion?
Any opposition?
And our topic of discussion is at the General Assembly.
Okay, just a second. So we're gonna look into
Finish the vote.
and so,
So,
okay. So the topic of discussion, what we're planning to do is, we're planning to have speakers on sustainability, housing, transportation, and homelessness. But talking a little bit about what happened 30 years ago, and then what the vision of where we're going with all of these topics. And we'll either do panels or speakers. Now we have to work on the program.
Yes.
The answer to your question.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I've got down here is that because we're looking into the future, we thought once again, we'd have a youth panel. And this time we thought that one of the things we have in our office now is youth. So we'd asked Jake and I don't know if you were here when I did this, but we're recruiting Anne and maybe Eleanor and Talia.
Maybe our new fellows that are coming.
And we have some new fellows coming and we thought we'd ask them, because they're already bright and think about things, to talk about the future based on the program.
So it's what we've done and then what the future might look like, right? Celebrating what we've done and then looking to the future.
And we, if you remember at the 20th or something, we had posters around the wall of what we've done. So we're talking about updating all of those things. So you're making skeptical looks?
No, I'm thinking, because one of the topics I've gone to so many different events and meetings, the crux seems to be housing. And so it's like, say, housing in the South Bay, in the past, current, and future. How is the housing going to be for the South Bay area? We keep talking about arena housing. That comes up on a lot of my questionnaires for me getting endorsements. They're just wanting to know how our cities are going to actually deal with the arena housing, how you're going to deal with low income housing, how are you going to deal with ADUs? You talked about the ADUs and tied into the water. All of that is around housing at this point in time.
Okay. So we definitely should talk about that.
Good.
On the flip side on that, maybe about commercial development, when it's, we just saw an article about Santa Monica, Third Street Promenade, totally dead, used to be a thriving spot. A lot of people view commercial development as the revenue generator for the cities due to sales tax and otherwise. And so maybe with the interest rate dropping in September, whether there's gonna be more money flooding into commercial or not.
Use development
What's that?
for mixed use developments.
I mean, some people say in Redondo Beach, mixed use is dead. What you end up with is residential development on top and vacancy down below. And so maybe examples or speakers on, for one session of just where commercial development has succeeded and continues to do well in this environment. I heard the Delaware Mall is struggling, Galleria is dead. I don't know if it's doing well anywhere.
You're bringing up two other issues. One is the fiscalization of land use, which is that cities get their money for development. And second is that we have internet. I mean, how many of you are buying at things at midnight now that you never did before? So those are maybe those are the things we should talk about. What's the future of commercial development? How do city, we could do a whole conference on the fiscalization of land use. Financing is not based on what you need to build today. So those are two things.
It'd be an interesting discussion.
Could you have that something separate than the General Assembly? Because that seems, not that
That's a
I want to add
that's a
more
lot
work,
in
but
itself.
Yeah, I mean, the finance, how cities are, people don't understand. I explain to my friends all the time. People don't understand cities. Why aren't they building housing? They're not building housing because how are they gonna pay for it? Where's the police gonna come from? Nobody's changing the foundation of cities get paid. So anyway, but it's something that people don't know, so it's not a bad topic.
Start looking at stuff like the promenade used to be thriving and.
Yeah.
Used to be thriving.
Galleria.
A lot of that has to do with crime. I mean, homeless is chasing people away from the promenade because they get attacked or accosted. The malls, you get all these kids that run amok through the malls and stuff, and it just causes people not to want to do it.
It's funny because
You go to Amazon
Yeah.
and you start doing stuff online.
And I read a next door just the other day about somebody saying they went to Del Amo and there were all these guards and it was so wonderful because it was all these guards at Del Amo.
Yeah, not so much.
I saw that. Yeah.
Things that we're looking.
Such a shock.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is all part of it. I don't, you just call it the ills of society.
that's not celebrating our 30th.
Years ago, we didn't have all these concerns. Done. So we'll have to counter this back. There's 100 topics and we can go a lot of different ways,
Yeah.
but we'll see what we can.
Keep it more uplifting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it's good.
What about the location?
of the location. Do you wanna,
I can run through this real quick, just so.
Good.
So the green one is actuals from last year, what we paid. There was no room rental fee. This is what we paid for catering. So altogether, we paid just under 24,000 for catering. This production fee was actually waived by the city. So 12,000, just under 12,500 for AV costs. So all in, it was about, not counting like staff time. It was about 36,400. This year, assuming about a 5% increase, just estimate for like food costs. There's a,
you have the room rental in there?
yeah, the room rental is 8,000. 6,000 production fee. Both of those is what we would essentially ask the city of Carson to waive for us, a total of 14,000. In a situation where they don't, 40,000 plus 14, you're getting pretty close to the cost of doing it at a hotel. So it really makes the Carson Community Center more economically viable for us, is the city waiving the.
Does that include the permit? The city manager, it's the permit fee.
Yeah, so that's what I call the room. The permit fee. Yeah, and then
Did you submit the request?
No, 'cause
we were waiting for you
today.
guys to confirm that you want to continue it at
Oh.
Carson before we.
So okay, never mind. I won't say, I'm not saying that now.
If you. Then we'll be submitting that immediately.
And so
Okay.
the-
I'm good.
looked at a handful of hotels and other venues. I was a little surprised by this, but there's very few that actually can handle the number of people that we expect.
why I
Most of
remember-
them kind of cap out at 300. We're planning for on a high end 500. And the one that we really landed on was the West Drift in Manhattan Beach. It's just off of Rosecrans. And so that one, including some discounts that they were willing to give us, came to 59,000. So it's still more expensive than Carson
Did you guys check the DoubleTree
in.
Torrance on Hot Dog?
Yes, and I think that one was, part of the issue there was they couldn't guarantee the space if like they had a really big wedding come in or something like that.
One to bump us.
That
They have bumpy?
room blocks. Yeah, so,
We're paying for hotel rooms.
yeah, so if somebody was coming in where they would be buying hotel rooms,
Get bumped.
we could potentially get bumped.
Yeah.
And with an event
we
like
do
this,
business,
yeah, we can't be doing that. So the West Drift in Manhattan Beach seemed to be the most viable of the hotels, unless we were to downsize the event.
Even Marriott?
And we looked at all of
We
them.
looked at,
Yeah.
That's pretty expensive.
we even looked at,
Next to the mall?
Torrance, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. We looked at the, a couple golf courses on the hill, Terranea, I think.
Space for how
They
many?
all just end up being more expensive or the capacity that we kind of need to plan.
So we need to move on because you guys are all gonna
Yep.
want to.
So
Let's go to community center. I have.
motion to continue with the city of Carson?
Yep. Motion.
Second.
Motion is second, above Cruikshank. Go ahead, call the question.
Any opposition? Abstentions? Okay, now we can formally put in the.
Right, now a letter. Okay, approval of the invoices.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion is second, approve the bills.
Any opposition? Abstention?
Do you wanna?
Yeah, so just a few updates. We are having a special tour of the SoCal Gas Hydrogen Homes, which is in their Downey facility, along with, they have some a kitchen equipment that supports the renewable programs, and we're inviting the city staff that do the energy efficiency work along with our partners. Limited tour. but they're all excited to go to that, so it'll be really fun. Also, I have an announcement that I just got notified that the cities of Carson, Rolling Hills, and Torrance all are going to receive Beacon Awards.
Yeah.
They didn't say it was a secret. So, and our team, Sean actually wrote those applications for the cities. So it's very exciting that they're getting those awards. So you should see some, if you haven't already, I'm sure your staff has already been notified. I don't think they would have notified us before they notified your staff, but this is exciting. Yeah. And that's really all I wanted to talk to you about today.
I have two other things.
Sure.
We did receive $175,000 for the cool roofs scope of work. And we, instead of bringing a contract to you, they sent us a letter just adding $175,000 to our contract with that scope of work. So there isn't really anything to approve. I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, and a little bit on that, what's interesting about that, we're gonna hire a consultant. So most of that funding will go to a consultant firm that will come in and do an analysis for all the cities, looking at their facilities and seeing what the potential is to have a cool surface as well as what materials might work for them. But just so happens that the Los Angeles County Department of Economic, is that what Economic Development Department of LA County, I think that's what they're calling themselves, is receive funding to do workforce development specifically to be the labor to put on the new cool roofs with that technology. So we're going to be able to combine those programs. So I'm excited about that. So you can get your analysis and then there'll be a workforce that is being developed in order to do that work. And then what was your second thing?
My second thing was, I actually did write down here, going to have volunteer recognition in November. We're thinking of a 5 p.m. dinner. There's about 15 active volunteers. And the top 4 will be recognized at the board meeting, was our thought, that the ones that are receiving the special awards. They'll also be sending every time to your cities, have a volunteer if you want to recognize them at your council meeting. So that's what we're doing for the volunteers. Okay?
Cool roofs, where is that or what is that?
Johnson.
Homeless, just really quick, on Measure A, we're actually looking at what we're gonna do if the measure does pass, and also what we could potentially do if the measure doesn't pass. If it does pass, we're partnering with the Gateway Cities COG to ask for additional $13 million of annual funding. We're currently getting $2 million right now, Measure H funding. So looking to bump that up to a full $15 million. And then if it doesn't pass, we're actually studying a lot of city measures that are competing with Measure A right now. There's about 19 cities with their own measures. And so we're studying those and maybe potentially could be making a recommendation if it doesn't pass for what we want to do, Measure A. On Functional Zero, we are moving forward with the pledge. This is the update right now. We still have to go through quite a few cities, but so far, everyone except one has passed it. And that was Torrance, although I think we want to maybe try to go back to them once we have more cities on board. But this is how it's looking like right now. So still need to schedule this on the agendas of some more cities. A lot of cities were dark in August, so we're hoping to pick this back up again. Long Beach actually reached out last week. They're pledge curious along with the Gateway Cities COGs. So they're going to be looking at their pledge and their COG.
Did Torrance vote it down or they just didn't vote it in?
They voted not to sign on to the pledge.
So they discussed it and voted not to
Yeah.
sign up. So was it a 5-0 or?
No, it was close. So
5-2.
yeah.
But I think that what I'd like Brownson to do and his staff is to go back and find, I don't know what in the pledge is the problem. You know, we don't know, it would be nice to know what was could the pledge be changed so that they would like it. We don't know what the problem was.
They didn't say during their. They were just saying how they were doing a lot, and I guess they didn't. I didn't find the value of them signing on to the pledge. So I think just need to do a better job of talking to the council members of how important it is for our region to look like we're in this together.
Well, two things I would suggest when it comes to your council. In Torrance, the staff made no recommendation, and the board representative didn't, advocate strongly for it. And we'd love to get the pledge signed by everybody. We'd love the staff to recommend it. I think the city managers seem to be on board, and so it'd be great not to have it just come with no recommendation. And then if it comes to your council, we'll help you speak up and say something.
We put it on consent and passed it.
Thank you. That's the,
Yeah.
I made it
Yes,
really
that's
easy.
easiest.
That's the best.
No discussion.
No discussion, just.
I think we're taking it up Tuesday night.
Okay.
It's
I will be at,
Tomorrow night.
Rolling Hills Estates. Do you want you want me to send someone to your council?
Check our agenda, and if it's on there, then yes.
Okay.
But I can pretty well represent it. But it would always be good to have somebody there in case questions are
Okay.
asked.
Awesome, terrific. And then, senior services, we're gonna talk about transportation for seniors, and have a presentation on that. And then we'll continue to talk about Measure A in our homeless task force meetings. That's it.
Okay, Jake is up with local travel network and e-bike safety issues. Do you have something you want to? Sure.
No significant updates. We're meeting with Lawndale for our subcommittee again. Is our second meeting with them to go over some route refinement.
You have to speak up.
Oh, sorry. We have further route refinement with Redondo Beach later this week. And then at the beginning of next month, we have been invited to the Peninsula's school districts, presidents and principals luncheon, which is a yearly luncheon, and there will be multiple e-bike stakeholders there as the cities move towards an effort for a regional school sticker program. Jessica from Rolling Hills Estates, so Jessica Slauson has been spearheading it, and we've been collaborating with the sheriff's department as well as local PD. And so we'll be there to present to hopefully some PTA members as well as school administrators.
Also, we did submit the SS4A grant, and that we got tremendous support from letters from cities, from schools, legislators, stakeholders. So Jake did that. He did a great job in getting that submitted for us. And hopefully that would give us money to do ride and drives and e-bike safety. So we'd have funding for that. And then Jake also was at the El Segundo Art Walk along with Rodney. Thank you so much for coming. And I don't know if you want to say anything about that. It was lessons learned for us being at an event like that.
Yeah, there was definitely some lessons learned. Our approach was that this event drew a lot of traffic and foot traffic primarily, and so we were hoping to leverage that to get some engagement at our booth. However, what we took away from it was a few things location primarily matters. We partnered with a e-bike vendor called E-Ride, which although is the largest in the South Bay, their location in relation to the Art Walk wasn't very ideal. And so halfway through, we relocated to a restaurant that had a parking lot with a live band, which worked out better. Second was that at an event such as the Art Walk, it is more of an artistic social event. People are walking around with margaritas and it was more lively. And government initiatives weren't necessarily as much of a draw for people as the art and the exhibits. So moving forward, through the SS4A grant, part of that is to develop these ride and drive events. And we took an approach of, in our scope of work, to go with seeking out help from a consultant who is a professional in event planning, because this is not the COG's expertise, and we definitely, as we saw, have a lot to learn. And so having a professional who can kind of show us the playbook on how to do these events, and we can leverage that for future events, seems like the best approach.
Then the last thing on this item is I just wanted to report to you, as you know, we have the trademark for the turtle. We're excited about that. You gave us a budget of $6,000 to spend. And since the agenda was done, we did get another bill. So we have spent $3,090 of the $6,000 that you authorized, and we have the trademark. So we're very excited about that. I have no other items. The one thing I did want to ask though, and just confirm, our next meeting is Indigenous Peoples Day. Transportation Committee discussed it and said they would still meet on October 14th. And I just wanted to make sure that everybody was okay to meet. I know the county, I think, is closed on October 14th. But I think our cities are open. So.
I know where you live at, so okay.
Okay, so we won't change that. And then November 6th is everybody in November. Rodney, that's all I have.
Okay, anything good for the order?
I have two things. One being on the Clean Power Alliance as the legislative chair. There's two things that AQMD is putting down the pipe as far as a recommendation. by 2026, if your water heater breaks down and cannot be repaired, you have to replace it with an electric water heater. If your furnace breaks down by 2028 and it cannot be repaired, they want to replace it with an electric furnace. But there's no provisions for anyone who are moderate to low income for subsidies to help them go by this new regulation. So I'm working now with CPA and other individuals to try to figure out a way to get funding made available for low to moderate income individuals based upon the new mandate.
Come up with how they plan to handle the increased draw on the grid if everybody goes electric.
That's the other part that I'm also working with, because not only are they pushing for electrification of all of these appliances, but now you have EV charging stations and everything else, and it's going to be a big drain. They have no idea. So that's something that I know, being on the board, we're working on trying to figure out the infrastructure through Southern California Edison and other CPUCs, and just what can be done at this point in time. But everyone seems to have their thumbs in their ears at this point and saying, well, we can see what happens, but I'm not a person that want to wait to see. We need to make sure we have a plan in place.
I need to bring up this issue at a lot of the committees that I go to and speak on. About this issue about, can the grid support the state's goal of electrification? And what does that look like? And how can you not, and not as much spend a lot of backing away from energy efficiency? And you can't have energy efficiency, you can't move to fully electric without energy efficiency. You're just gonna put more strain on the grid. So we do say that at a lot of our meetings. And whenever I am sitting next to a CPUC staffer, I always make sure we say something.
We can't even handle the heat right now.
No,
Yeah.
but the other part too, I'm actually trying to meet with AQMD to try to get that mandate of 2026 and 2028 pushed back, as opposed to being so soon.
Yeah.
Maybe they can assure us the grid is okay now, and then we would be more, things that, did any of you have power outages? You did.
It just fixed
We've
it
had a
right
couple
now.
on our site.
Oh, really?
We have a permanent power outages.
Yes.
What's it called?
Just a few.
It's not temporary.
Just a few.
Okay, anything else? No, hearing none?
I have a the office hosting a volunteer day for the West Athens, Westmont area.
Okay.
Cleanup on October 5th. But I'll get more details when I finalize my own project. But other than that, just put in your calendar if you're interested.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. We stand adjourned.